So when we walked into the corner chateau, I immediately thought that it was Drew.
Which house do you think deserves to win?
The winning house of the kitchen and dining room challenge is the
House
house
next
next
door.
door.
Drew Scott, one half of the beloved Property Brothers duo, has built a life around transforming houses into dream homes, capturing the hearts of millions along the way. Yet behind the smiles, success, and on-screen charm lies a heartbreaking tragedy that few truly know. His journey has not been without pain, and the story hidden behind the spotlight reveals a far more vulnerable side to the star. What devastating truth has Drew carried through his rise to fame, and how has it shaped him forever? Drew Scott's health battle. By 2019, Property Brothers had become a regular favorite on HGT5 and one of the most trusted shows for viewers around the world. Drew and Jonathan Scott were at the peak of their fame. But then, Drew started missing from important moments, and the natural chemistry that made the show so popular seemed off. Online forums quickly filled with speculation. Some people thought the brothers had argued behind the scenes, while others feared Drew might leave the franchise completely. The real reason, however, was far more serious. For more than 1 year, Drew had been secretly fighting a mysterious illness that neither he nor his family fully understood at first. He tried to keep it hidden, determined not to let fans or his team down, but his condition was getting harder to ignore. His symptoms were constant and frightening. He felt extreme exhaustion that seemed like the flu, but never went away. His digestion was unpredictable, causing painful stomach problems that made working long hours nearly impossible. Even normal daily activities became overwhelming. He discovered his body reacted strongly to heat, and even small amounts of physical activity left him drained. Exercise, once part of his everyday routine, was no longer possible. The man known for endless energy and charm now felt fragile. The worst part was the uncertainty. Drew saw many doctors and went through countless tests, but for months, no one could explain his suffering. Each appointment ended with more confusion. While the cameras kept rolling and Jonathan continued the renovations, Drew lived with the constant fear that his illness might be life-threatening. His family shared the emotional strain, watching helplessly as he searched for answers. Finally, after extensive medical testing, a diagnosis was made. Drew had mercury poisoning combined with chronic fatigue syndrome. The news was both scary and relieving. It confirmed his illness was dangerous, even life-threatening if untreated, but at least it gave doctors a clear path for treatment. Drew now had to accept that he could no longer push himself at the same pace. He stepped back from filming, leaving Jonathan to carry much of the show alone. Fans noticed Drew's absence right away, and while the series went on, many agreed it didn't feel the same without both brothers together. During this time, Drew focused on recovery. His treatments included close medical care, strict lifestyle changes, and therapies to lower the mercury in his body. He slowed down, paid attention to rest, and carefully followed a healthy diet. Progress was gradual, but his health slowly improved. As he regained strength, Drew chose to share his journey openly with fans. He posted updates on social media, speaking honestly about his fears, frustrations, and lessons learned. In doing so, he turned a private struggle into a public message about the importance of health and self-care. Many viewers dealing with their own health challenges felt encouraged by his openness. Instead of hiding his weakness, Drew embraced it, proving that even successful public figures face real struggles. But when did the Property Brothers first make their breakthrough? Let's find out. The first big break. When Drew and Jonathan Scott started their university years at the University of Calgary, they were determined to balance their studies with financial independence. While many students focused only on classes, the twins already had an entrepreneurial spirit from their childhood businesses. It didn't take long before they spotted an opportunity that would shape their future. Near the campus, there was an old, neglected property for sale. Instead of seeing it as a problem, the brothers saw potential. They pooled their limited money, bought the house, and devoted themselves to fixing it up. With determination, they repaired, painted, and improved every corner until it became a comfortable home that could be rented out to students. Their risk paid off. The property quickly brought in steady income, giving them both financial security and a sense of achievement. That first success sparked their interest in doing more. Renovating the house had not only been profitable, but also revealed their natural talents. Jonathan had a gift for design and construction, while Drew excelled in negotiation and planning. Together, they had found a winning combination. As they took on more projects, their confidence grew. Friends and classmates began to notice how the twins could turn run-down buildings into desirable spaces. But the journey wasn't without challenges. Working with real estate agents often frustrated them. Many were inefficient or didn't meet their expectations. Drew, unwilling to let that slow them down, decided to take control. He studied, earned his realtor's license, and began handling their property deals himself. This was a turning point. With Drew managing the business side and Jonathan focusing on renovations, they gained full control of their projects. Their professionalism soon led them to create the Scott Real Estate Company. By their mid-20s, they had already flipped numerous properties and were earning a reputation as smart, trustworthy investors. They weren't just students trying side jobs anymore. They were becoming recognized entrepreneurs. Still, Drew couldn't ignore the dream he had carried since his teenage years, a career in entertainment. Acting had always been his passion. Real estate gave him stability, but it didn't completely fulfill his creative side. So, in 2006, Drew made a bold choice. He left Calgary for Vancouver, a city with a thriving film industry, to chase acting opportunities. Jonathan stayed in Calgary to manage their growing business, but breaking into entertainment was harder than Drew expected. Soon, he faced financial struggles and slipped into debt. This was a difficult period, but Drew refused to give up. He leaned on what he knew best: real estate. By restarting the business in Vancouver, he regained financial stability while also building connections in the film industry. He took acting classes, auditioned, and expanded his network step by step. Balancing both worlds wasn't easy, but it proved his resilience and determination. The brothers' passion for entertainment never faded. Back in 2002, Drew, Jonathan, and their older brother J.D. had already co-founded the Davidian Production Group, a company dedicated to independent film and television projects. This showed that their interest in media wasn't just a hobby. It was part of their long-term vision. For Drew, even if acting roles were hard to come by, he was still creating and contributing to storytelling through production. What did the brothers do to convince a TV network to give them an opportunity? Let's find out. The birth of Property Brothers. By the late 2000s, television was on the hunt for the next big reality show idea. Networks had already seen how popular talent competitions were, and they wanted to capture that same excitement with a fresh twist. One idea was called Realtor Idol, modeled after American Idol. The concept was to have real estate professionals compete for recognition, but it didn't click with audiences. The idea stalled early, and producers knew they had to come up with something better. The production company Cineflix then shifted gears. Instead of copying a singing competition, they imagined a show that focused on the emotional journey of families looking for a home. They called it My Dream Home at first, and thought Drew Scott would be the perfect host to guide buyers through the process. Their plan was to pair him with a female co-host who could bring design ideas to balance his real estate skills. The idea was stronger, but still not complete. Drew realized it would be far better if his brother Jonathan joined him. Unlike other co-host options, Jonathan already had years of experience in construction and renovation, and, of course, he had a natural bond with Drew. Together, they made the perfect team. Drew handled the business side, negotiating contracts and guiding purchases, while Jonathan envisioned transformations and carried out the physical work. Their sibling chemistry made the show feel more real and entertaining. Cineflix tested this setup, and it quickly proved to be something special. When HGTV picked up the show in 2011, it officially launched as Property Brothers. The format was simple but effective. Drew helped families find houses that matched their budget and dreams, and once the deal was closed, Jonathan stepped in to design and renovate, turning fixer-uppers into dream homes. What made the show stand out wasn't just the renovations, it was the emotional story in every episode. Families started with hope, went through stress during construction, and ended in tears of joy when they saw the finished result. It wasn't only about walls, paint, or flooring. It was about giving people a vision of a brighter future. Drew and Jonathan's personalities added even more. Their playful teasing kept things fun, their teamwork eased tense moments, and their ability to connect with clients made viewers feel like part of the journey. Property Brothers became more than a renovation show. It was about family, dreams, and transformation. The success was immediate. From its first season, the show had strong ratings and began spreading internationally. Viewers everywhere related to the challenge of finding affordable housing and loved watching the magic of renovations. The brothers' Canadian background gave them a down-to-earth charm that stood out in a world of flashy reality stars. They seemed genuine, hardworking, and truly invested in helping families. The timing also worked in their favor. In the early 2010, many people were struggling with unstable housing markets. Watching Drew close deals and Jonathan create beauty from outdated spaces gave people hope. It showed that even in tough times, with determination and creativity, owning a dream home was possible. The show quickly became one of HGTV's biggest hits, boosting the network's reputation and attracting advertisers. Behind the scenes, Drew finally achieved his dream of being on screen, though not in the acting roles he once imagined. Instead, he found a new kind of performance, blending real estate with entertainment. Jonathan also found his spotlight, turning his design work into storytelling. Together, they had discovered the perfect stage for their talents. With fame secured, the brothers didn't stop at one show. They built an entire empire. So, how did they rise to become beloved faces on television? Let's uncover their story. The Scott twins' journey. When Drew and Jonathan Scott became teenagers, their energy and drive only grew stronger. While many kids their age spent most of their free time on school or sports, the twins were already testing out ways to make money and build new skills. One of their first jobs was entertaining at children's parties. They trained as clowns, complete with colorful costumes, balloons, and tricks, and soon became well known in their neighborhood for their fun and lively shows. Although the job seemed playful, it actually needed a lot of discipline, patience, and the ability to keep young kids interested. These early performances became their first stage, where they learned how to perform, make people laugh, and gain confidence in front of strangers. Their natural sense of humor and showmanship, traits that later made them shine on television, were shaped in those crowded living rooms filled with giggling children. For Drew, sports once looked like his future. Tall, lean, and naturally athletic, he dreamed of playing basketball professionally. The game matched his competitive spirit, and he poured his energy into it. But injuries cut this path short. What once seemed like a bright future in basketball ended suddenly, leaving him searching for a new direction. The change was difficult, but it opened the door to another passion that had been quietly growing inside him: entertainment. Growing up with a father, Jim, who had once been a stuntman and actor, Drew was already familiar with the world of television and film. He had always been fascinated by it, and once basketball was no longer an option, he gave this interest his full focus. Soon, chances started to come his way. Drew landed small roles in well-known shows such as Smallville, where he worked as a body double for Tom Welling, as well as appearances in Breaker High and Madison. These were not leading roles, but they gave him valuable experience on real sets. He saw how productions were run, how directors worked with actors, and how every little detail added to the final show. For Drew, being part of these projects was more than just exciting. It showed him what it really meant to work in entertainment. He learned timing, memorization, and how important it was to stay flexible in an industry that was full of uncertainty. These experiences sparked his passion even more and convinced him that he belonged in front of the camera. Jonathan, while just as talented, leaned more toward design and construction. Though he supported Drew's ambitions and shared in the fun of exploring new creative paths, still, Drew soon realized that acting alone could not guarantee financial stability. The entertainment industry was unpredictable, with opportunities that often came and went quickly. To support himself, he turned again to real estate, something he and Jonathan had already tried during their years at the University of Calgary. Back then, they had bought, renovated, and rented homes to other students, and Drew saw how those skills could help him while he continued to pursue acting. This balance became a major turning point. By mixing real estate with acting, Drew managed to bring together two very different passions. On one hand, he could keep chasing the thrill of being on television and film. On the other hand, he had the steady income and problem-solving opportunities that real estate offered. Renovating homes, making deals, and managing tenants gave him the security of knowing he could support himself, even if auditions didn't work out. Later, when the twins moved deeper into university life, another turning point was waiting for them, one that would quietly shape the future they had no idea was coming. But how was their humble start? Let's take a closer look. The early beginning. On April 28, 1978, in the lively city of Vancouver, Canada, twin boys entered the world. Drew and Jonathan Scott. They were identical twins, inseparable from the moment they were born, and the youngest members of the Scott family. What made their story special was not only that they shared the same face and birthday, but that their lives would grow to be defined by two powerful forces: creativity and discipline. Their parents, Jim and Joanne Scott, shaped that balance from the very beginning. Jim was a man of adventure and daring. In his younger years, he had worked in Hollywood as both an actor and a stuntman, brushing shoulders with cameras, bright lights, and the thrill of performing. He had lived through the excitement of action scenes and the unpredictability of film sets. But as time went on, Jim chose a quieter life. He left the entertainment business and turned to ranching, dedicating himself to raising his family. Yet, he never let go of his memories. Around the dinner table or during quiet evenings, he often shared colorful stories of his Hollywood days. These tales sparked an early fascination in the twins for the world of entertainment, adventure, and storytelling. At the same time, Jim taught them something far more lasting than Hollywood glamour: the value of hard work, the importance of resilience, and the courage to start over when life demanded it. Their mother, Joanne, influenced them in her own steady and thoughtful way. While Jim inspired creativity and boldness, Joanne built a foundation of education, structure, and organization. She believed in the power of learning and made sure her children never underestimated the importance of schoolwork. From her, the twins learned that imagination could only thrive when paired with discipline. Even as little boys, Drew and Jonathan stood out. They weren't content to sit around idly or wait for opportunities to come to them. They brimmed with energy, curiosity, and a need to create. Jim believed children should learn the value of effort early in life, so he gave them small chores when they were just 7 years old. These weren't just tasks to keep them busy. He tied them to rewards, teaching the boys that effort could lead to results. By the time Drew and Jonathan turned 8, they were no longer just helping around the house. They were stepping into something much bigger, their very first business venture. It began simply. The boys started crafting nylon-wrapped hangers with their own hands. Most children might have seen this as a hobby, but the Scott twins viewed it as an opportunity. Once the hangers were made, they didn't stop there. They dressed neatly, knocked on doors in their neighborhood, and politely introduced themselves to potential customers. Selling hangers door to door was not glamorous. It meant facing rejection, sometimes hearing no, and learning patience. But it also meant experiencing the thrill of their first yes. Their turning point came when one woman saw potential in these determined young boys. She placed a large order for hangers, far beyond the small purchases they were used to. For Drew and Jonathan, this moment was life-changing. It wasn't just about money. It was proof that their effort and persistence could lead to real, tangible success. That order planted a spark inside both of them. They realized they were capable of creating something valuable and convincing others to believe in it too. What had begun as a small childhood project now felt like the start of something much larger. In many ways, the Scott household was not like others. Joanne continued to keep school at the center of their lives, making sure their academic work was never neglected. Reading, writing, and focus were non-negotiables in her eyes. At the same time, Jim pushed them to look at the world differently, to seek opportunities, and to embrace creativity. Together, their parents created the perfect balance. Dream big, but back your dreams with education, discipline, and hard work. The hangar business was more than a way to earn a few dollars for candy or toys. It was their first classroom in entrepreneurship and resilience. It taught them how to present themselves with confidence, how to negotiate deals, and how to connect with different kinds of people. It also introduced them to rejection, not as a failure, but as a challenge to keep going. So, what are your thoughts on Drew Scott's heartbreaking tragedy? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.